No? I thought of something else I might do, so.
I hope this thing's in tune.
See.
Amen. Keep me safe till the storm passes by.
Amen.
It's always good to hear Connie play it, and that's such a good song. And we do have storms of life that we go through, but ain't you glad you got somebody that you can depend upon? It's good to be in the house of the Lord tonight. We thank all of you for coming out. It's good to we're up here trying to fill the spot Charlie normally fills, and he does such a masterful job that it makes it impossible to fill his shoes. But we'll muddle through this. And Charlie, if we goof something up, you just holler at us and say, Mike, you need to do this, and we'll try to do that. So, but it's good to be in the house of the Lord, and I hope all of you's having a good week. And serving the Lord is such a joy, in our heart if we just realize what a gift we have in serving Him every day. Then we have much to be thankful for, don't we? And there's a lot of people that would love to be here tonight that can't be and would love to have the opportunity. So we already got plenty to thank Him for right there, don't we? So, all righty, we'll go ahead and open the service up with prayer. Roy, do you care to ask a blessing this evening on the service?
Our Heavenly Father, we do thank you, Father, for the opportunity to gather sanctuary around. We do thank you, God, for a beautiful day. God, to breathe the air that, Father, you provide. To drink the water, the food, and all things of life that you provide. But God, Father, most of all, we thank you, God, for the gift of salvation. And whosoever will that come and take of the water of life freely. We pray that God, thy holy, wonderful blessing be on the service tonight, that thou will anoint the leadership of it, the songs of Zion, the testimonies, God, that most of all, thy word may go out and demonstrate the spirit and power of God. Not only at the church, but God, over the air, that God, somebody may seek the face of thee, Lord, before yes. Eternity late. We ask these things in our precious name.
Amen. All right, if you got your hymn books, I'm sure all of you got some. I've looked down the aisles and I see them, so no one's got an excuse for not singing tonight. So, page 164.
I was thinking about the words to this. Just when you're singing them, really pay attention to them. We sang at the rest home today, and they seem to enjoy it. Just listen
Amen.
to the words.
Silver and its gold, and you have to get along with meager fare. Just remember in His word how He feeds a little bird. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. and never doubt, He will surely bring you out. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. When your enemies assail and your heart begins to fail, don't forget that God in heaven answers prayer. He will make a way for you and will lead you safely through. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. Leave it there, leave it there. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. If you trust and never doubt, He will surely bring you out. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. When your youthful days are gone and old age is stealing on, and your body bends beneath the weight of care, He will never leave you, and He will go with you to the end. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. Leave it there, leave it there. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. If you trust and never doubt, He will surely bring you out. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. Really got some pretty words in it, don't it? Thank the Lord for that. That's always our problem, or my problem anyway, is leaving it there. You know, we a lot of times want to bring them to Him, but sometimes I want to carry Him right back with me when I get up from prayer. But that Lord wants us to leave them. He said He'd make our burden. He didn't say He'd take them away from us, but He said He'd make them light for us, wouldn't He? A lot easier to carry something light than it is to carry something heavy. So, so He'll make them as light as we allow Him to. So, this place says.
How many times I wanted to say, take your burden. I wanted to add an S on it.
Yes, amen.
And it's burden. And I thought, kind of like how we do sin. We as mankind, we kind of categorize sin, big sin, little sin, and that stuff like that.
Amen.
And I think we do our burdens that way too.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll say it might not be anything to you, but it's something to us. But I think no matter what it is, it's just a burden. And
Yes,
I
it is.
don't look at it as a big burden or a little burden. He
No, you
can
don't.
take care of it all. So I'm thankful for that.
Amen.
I'm thankful that He loves us.
So true, so true.
Amen. If we don't trust Him in the small things, we ain't gonna trust Him in the big, are we? And there's nothing really big or small to God anyway. I mean, really, we make them big or small, like you said. But what can we bring to God that's big to Him? We can't bring anything big to Him, can we? He owns it all. So, anyone else with a testimony this evening before we sing our next number? I'm gonna give the Lord praise. All righty, page 384. Showers of blessings. There shall be showers of blessing. This is the promise of love. There shall be seasons refreshing, sent from the Savior above. Showers of blessing we need. Mercy drops round us are falling, but for the showers we plead. There shall be showers of blessing, precious reviving again, over the hills and the valleys, and of abundance of rain. Showers of blessing we need. Mercy drops round us are falling, but for the showers we plead. There shall be showers of blessing, send them upon us, O Lord. Grant to us now a refreshing, come and now honor Thy word. Showers of blessing we need. blessings. You know, it's so great to be able to, sometimes when we think we were faced with a lot of trials and troubles, do you ever sit down with a piece of paper and start counting your blessings and start looking, and all of a sudden, when you begin to stack them up, how little those burdens really are. Sometimes when we stack up how many blessings the Lord has put in our life every day. So we take a lot of things for granted, especially in this country, don't we? But the Lord has really blessed us with most of us, you know, here have a home to go to and a good place to sleep, food to eat, you know, and really, what more do you need? You know, if you're blessed with that, you're blessed a lot more than many countries in this world don't have that, and so many people in this country don't have it. So we need to count our blessings. Anyone with a testimony before we sing our next song? Amen. Bless you, Wayne. Bless your heart.
Devil works on me a lot.
Yes.
I've been in the Bible reading and listening to the gospel on the TV and just trying to get a closer walk with the Lord.
Amen. Bless you, Wayne.
I want to make heaven my home one day.
Amen. Bless you, brother.
Yes. My family.
Yes.
Amen.
And I love the Lord.
Amen. It will be a glad reunion day one day, ain't there, Wayne? You know, we're going to get to see Jesus, but today is the day that Dad passed, and I'm looking forward to seeing him too. Sis, go ahead.
I want to praise God for bringing our daughter through Nashville the other day safe.
Amen.
She was trying for 5.5 hours to get to work, and everywhere she went, a tree fell in front of her, never touched her. But
Thank the
she
Lord.
was car, she was sitting on the phone and cried to me, and Dad told her, she said, Mom, there's people I work with missing. One of the ladies has been talking to my daughter a lot about Christ. Everything around her was destroyed. The only thing she lost was her front porch.
Amen.
God takes care of his. He really
Yes,
does.
he does.
I want you to just remember Nashville, because the pictures she has sent me are so graphic and so horrible. And these people need prayer. They need our life. They need our hope. And please remember them in prayer.
Yes, amen. So great to hear how God's hand guides and protects. Bless you, brother.
Tell a little story that happened to me this morning. My sister-in-law called me, and she was all excited. A friend of hers who has sugar had a serious problem with his toe, that they infected, and thought he was going to lose his foot and his toe and that kind of thing. And she was all excited, and I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "Well, he went to church last week or last Sunday, and he got anointed. And they took him to Columbus, I guess it was Monday, and they did a test on his toe and found that the circulation was good.
Amen. Thank the Lord.
Amen.
And he's going to be okay."
Thank God.
The Lord did it. Said he was anointed, and the Lord took care of him. I said, "Well, don't you notice this?" I said, "The Lord takes care of it. All you got to do is ask him.
Amen.
Turn it over to him, let him take care of it. He'll be it."
Thank the Lord.
Excited, and I said, "Well, call your sister and tell her." And she said, "I will." So just praise the Lord for all that.
Amen. Great to hear.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful isn't Jesus my Lord? Wonderful. Eyes have seen, ears have heard, it's recorded in God's word. Isn't Jesus my Lord? Wonderful.
Yes, he is.
Amen.
That's one of the reasons the Lord was pleased with testimonies, isn't it?
Well, I just want to say I
Your
love the
victories.
Lord tonight because he
Amen.
is wonderful.
Amen.
Yes, he
He's a
is.
wonderful God.
Amen.
He is wonderful, isn't he?
It's because the popcorn serves in.
Amen. Amen. That's the kind of service. That's the kind of service that's easy to lead, isn't it, brother? You know, you just let and the devil will never tell you to testify. So so if you got a testimony on your heart, you know where it's coming from. That's the Lord. Stand up and brag on him if you got something to brag on him for and something on your heart. But mind the Lord. All righty, page 310. We'll ask you all to stand on this one, and we'll fellowship after it's over, and we'll have altar prayer. There will be a happy meeting in heaven, I know, when we see the many loved ones we've known here below, gather on the blessed hilltops with hearts all aglow. the blessed Savior with heart and with voice. Tell how we came to love Him and make Him our choice. That will be a glad reunion day. Glad day, a wonderful day. Glad day, a glorious day. There with all the holy angels and loved ones to stay. That will be a glad reunion day. When we live a million years in that wonderful place, basking in the love of Jesus, beholding His face, it will seem in just a moment of praising His grace. That will be a glad reunion day. Glad day, a wonderful day. Glad day, a glorious day. There with all the holy angels and loved ones to stay. That will be a glad reunion day. Amen. If you don't care to play some, we'll fellowship and everybody gather around. Looking forward to flying away someday. Amen. By the grace of God, we will too, won't we? And remember my daughter-in-law. She was diagnosed with the flu, so she's sick, and that makes concern for our grandson, of course. So remember them, but they'll not have it go through the whole family. So remember them in prayer. Does someone have something they'd like to bring forth before we have prayer?
Troy Slusser is in King James Hospital, Columbus. He was bleeding the bowels, and they got it stopped. And that place started bleeding quite a bit, and got it stopped. But now he's back in intensive care. I'm most concerned with those souls, so pray for him.
Amen. You
I
want-
have
I'd
a
ask
niece
the
and,
church, go ahead.
I have a niece and both of her kids, both of her boys, had the flu A. So just keep that family in prayer.
Yes, there's a lot of that around.
So Michael asked the church to remember the Melvin family this evening. Sister Sandy passed away, yesterday. She'd been in hospital 3 days. It's gonna be tough on that family to deal with
Yes.
this situation. Remember the Melvin family this evening.
Amen.
Brother Michael, when I went to Christian Baptist Church years ago, there was this lady, we became really good friends. And the other day, they found her son dead.
Oh,
He was on drugs. And she just all the time was so upset about him. But she really needs prayer.
amen.
Remember her little family.
Yes, I've seen
Donna
that.
and her family. Floyd passed away the other day.
Yes.
There's several families in that tornado, they have not found their loved ones yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can imagine being a family not knowing.
Terrible. Be very stressful, but let's pray the Lord will provide.
We had you all pray for a friend of ours in Myrtle Beach. She passed today.
Oh,
And then I had a gentleman call last night. He's probably in his 70s. We pastored them when we were there, but he called the house and telling us that he'd been diagnosed with cancer. And the doctor didn't give him a real good outlook on it. It was pretty severe the way they'd talked. So, but he'd asked that we pray for him.
amen.
Amen.
Remember that. Just remember our pastor. He preaches the word of God tonight and breaks the bread of life. Food for our soul.
Several that I know have cancer. When I was requesting prayer for Jamie, my niece, I knew of 2 other people. Well, now there's like 11. I've been writing them down, so I'll be sure and remember all of them, but just in that length of time.
Yes.
Yesterday I heard 2 more, a girl I graduated with and then another lady both found out, but it's just like, I can't believe that many just in that short of time.
Yes, seems like there's another diagnosis every day for someone that you know or that someone's close to you. But God knows, don't he? He's the great physician and it's in his hand. The physicians can say, no, there's no hope, but we know it's in his hand. It's not in theirs. Anyone else?
Remember Sherry, she's got the stomach bug. And remember my uncle, I try to witness to him as much as I can when I'm up there, and he needs to be saved. He keeps talking about dying. I told him the other day, I said, I think you need to get right before that happens.
Amen.
So remember the lady that we wanted to call for Sunday night too.
Yes, amen.
I heard on the news this evening before I came to church that coronavirus, I think they found some cases in West Virginia. So let's just pray that they can they'll develop an antidote that will take care of it.
Amen.
I think it'd be good to lift our pastor and his wife up in our prayers.
Amen.
We got a lot of struggle,
Sure.
not only here at the church, but on the outside too. And I mean, I know what it is. I've been there, and I know Chris has been there likewise. A lot of responsibility with pastoring church, so lift both of them up. It's just not really George. Sister Teresa is companion.
Sure. Amen.
She's got a lot of job to do too, so pray for both of them.
Amen. Certainly should. Sure, everyone has something or someone by uplifted hand on their heart. All right, we'll go to prayer. Brother Charlie, you care to lead us?
Our wonderful Holy Father, that accept the word of your tonight, Lord, knowing that thou art God, Father, beside you there is no other. I know that they get me, and Lord, we're made to be saved, Lord, and by the holy and God, the righteous name of thine. And we thank you, God, this day, Lord, and we thank you all the blessing of life that God that thou, Lord, has bestowed upon us, Lord. And God, we cannot glorify thee, and Lord Father, for all that you've done. We ask tonight, Lord, each request will love, God, thou's heard each one, and I know that God, Lord, that you're able to intervene, and God, you're able to heal the bodies of those, God, that are sick, and God, you're able, and first of all, save the soul, God, Father, will cry out mercy, Lord, before the throne of thine, Lord, for we know that you came, God, to seek and save, God, that which is lost, Lord, each request will up tonight, Lord, again, you heard, God, each one, and oh, Father, thou, that made the heavens and the earth, and the fullness thereof, thou that made man in thy image, and God, that you're able, Lord, glory, God, can do all things, and oh, God, because you are, then we also can do all things, through thee, God, we strengthen us, Lord, do bless Brother George, Sister Teresa, Lord, God, as a minister here, God, the church, the Lord, God, that many souls may be won, Lord, people that are helped, that are discouraged, may be encouraged, the press on towards the mark, the high call which is, Lord, in Christ Jesus, Lord, as we pray for Sherry tonight, God, thou will touch her, I pray for her dad, God, the situation he's in, God, that thou also will intervene there, Lord, bless his service tonight, Lord, and just pour out the abundance of thy spirit, God, the service tonight, God, may rejoice and praise your wonderful holy name, as I will praise, Lord, and glorify the name of thine, in Jesus' holy name, amen.
All righty, somebody got a song or a testimony tonight you'd like to share? Glad to be in the house of the Lord tonight. I said, are you glad to be in the house of the Lord tonight? There we go, there we go. I was beginning to think the mic wasn't working up here, brother. So either no one was thankful to be here, but I am. George was talking a while, there in one of his messages, how people will watch your life, and boy, they do. They, a while back, I told Mary about it. It's been probably 6 months ago or so. I work up there with a bunch of residents, mainly in drug rehabilitation. We have about 150 females and about 200 males up there. So we have but the females in generally, I try not to supervise too much because of the conflict and natural conflict there that can happen. We try to, usually when one of them wants to talk to me, because we have some of them in our kitchen we work with that actually do some of the work in there, but kind of made me feel kind of small one day because that one I'm asked to see me, usually when they want to see me, it's some sort of complaint or something, something's wrong with something and they're griping about something. And I was busy that day and they said such and such wants to see you out front, and so I quit what I was doing and walked out there, and I thought, oh, here we go. I was walking out there with my, already dreading what I was going to hear. And this particular girl was graduating that day. And she immediately broke into tears and said, I've been watching you and I want you to know that I'm going to go to church and, I'm going to, and I don't know to this day what I did through Christ to influence her life that way. But I went back to my office after that was over. We had a short conversation and I felt, about that small, I went out there with a bad attitude and, thinking I was going to hear somebody chew on my ear for a little bit. And it made my day. I went back there with tears in my eyes and thankful to the Lord. I thought, Lord, I don't know what in the world you see in me. How little I can do. But then I thought of the song that Dad loved when he was here. He sang a lot, little is much when God is in it. And we never know what good we're going to do. If the Lord is in it, he'll bless it. And he surely laid his hand there. And I always want to be a good light for him. I know I fail him every day, but pray for me that the Lord will help me up there. It's a great opportunity. It's a great field up there, and they're fairly accepting of us witnessing to Christ about Christ up there. They it's amazing how our schools won't let Bibles in, or much be said about Christ and things like that. Yet when they get to prison, Dwayne, then they can have a Bible, you know. But it's, you know, I'd like to see them flip that around. You know, let's put Bibles back in school where they belong. Maybe they wouldn't be in prison when they in the end. So, but anyway, I'll try to shut up because, you know, like I said, I can go on and on and on like an ever-ready battery. I'll just keep going, you know. So, someone else with something on their heart tonight, song or testimony, would you like to bring up? Teresa.
And I'm thankful to be here and thankful for the love that God gives to me. And I was sitting here thinking how blessed I am. Yesterday I had all three of my grandkids, Emma and Gage, had been diagnosed with strep again and they couldn't go to school. And I had them all three yesterday and it wore me out.
Yeah.
Because they didn't act sick when they're all three together. You know, there was
Energy.
But you know what? I was sitting here thinking, I'm thankful that I was here in this state with my three grandkids under my roof, and God provided a way for us to come back and be.
Amen.
And when this all started happening, I just couldn't find peace in South Carolina. I told George, I said, I can't be in South Carolina and my grandkids be here when they need me. And I'm thankful that he provides and he allows me to be there. And I haven't had to work so far, and so thankful for that. But I thought, I'm just standing in the gap until everything's healed and everything's
Amen.
okay. And I thought, but I'm thankful for that one that stood in the gap that no one else could stand in.
That's right, he did.
And I'm thankful
Sure
for
did,
him
Teresa.
being perfect and for his love and for his mercy that he shows us. And I'm thankful that he's willing to die for me.
Amen. Amazing love, isn't it? Amazing. You don't understand it, but sure am grateful for it. And it's amazing how when we get where the Lord wants us to be, how he'll bless our lives in every way. It's just bending where he wants us to go. A lot of times, I don't want to. I like to do things a little bit different. You know, we don't want sometimes to wait upon the Lord's answered prayer, do we? You know, I don't. I like the drive-through version. You know, where I pull up to McDonald's and there's no reason for them not to have fish sandwiches ready when I get there. You know, so when they ask me to pull up, that's 5 minutes. You know, and that's the same way I want my prayers. You know, I like to order and pull up, get them, and move on. But that's not the way the Lord wants us to pray. He wants us to pray and trust him. So, anyone else? Oh my, I haven't got that with me, but I will bring that sometime. I actually do. So I wonder who that was. Oh, okay. Yeah, Andy Runyon. Yeah, we just. No, that's. Oh, I'm trying to backpedal the best I can. So, Andy, I'll get to you.
Play the guitar for you if you want.
Helen, I thought you'd talk about what the lady said today. Well, when we got done singing, and a lady stood up and she said she was just thankful that they really appreciated, us coming. And that lifts you up, We go to lift them up, but they lift us up.
Yeah, you're right. I just want to thank the Lord tonight for, when there's been times that I've been so down, I don't want anybody to know things that's happening in my life. Except, God knows what we, I heard somebody mention that a minute ago. God knows all about us. And he knows what we need. We just need to bring it to him. We have not because we ask not. He is all I need. Listen to Connie sings this.
He's all I need when I just need someone to talk to. He's always there to hear my prayer each time I call him. All my needs He supplies my thirsty soul. He satisfies. He's the Lord of all. He's all I need. He comforts me when I'm weary. Eases all my pain. Fills my every longing. Time and time again, He's my soul's inspiration, my heart's consolation. He's my everything. He's all I need. He's all I need. I need not turn to any other, for He's a friend who's closer than a brother. On this friend I can rely to be my strength as time goes by. He's the Lord of all. He's all I need. He comforts me when I'm weary. Eases all my pain. Fills my every longing. Time and time again, He's my soul's inspiration, my heart's consolation. He's my everything. He's all I need. He's all I need. He's all I need. He's my everything. He is all I need.
Heart, Connie. Good singer too, ain't you? Good piano player, good song, good singer too. So many talents. Ain't you glad He's all you need? Man, went to church with Andy for a while, so he goes over at Bethlehem Free Will Baptist now, and he's got a little boy that he sings "Sinner Saved by Grace," and sometime I'd like to hear him sing it, So he does a good job, and it's good to see the little ones pick up on things like that, and they do. They pick up on things a lot, don't they? They watch and they learn and they see. So it's very important that we keep them in church while they're young and show them the Lord, because this world sure ain't gonna do that, is it? So someone else. Bless you, Charlie. Bless you, sis. It's good.
And today, Jim and Connie, Jim don't always get there. But Connie goes to the second one, and Betsy and Cliff Wallace, they used to go here. They go to the other one. Well, Betsy called me this morning and said Cliff was sick, really sick, and they couldn't go. And I forgot to. I was trying to think, knew somebody that I need to request prayer for. I never thought of it afterwards, but remember Betsy and Cliff Wallace. Amen. Anyway.
Amen.
So the first one, Edna wasn't going to be there. It was just going to be me and Marilyn and my friend Janice that goes with us. And one of the other girls that goes with us, her daughter was having surgery. So I ended up canceling the first one. And so then we were going to meet at Wendy's before we went to the other one, Marilyn and I. And before I got there, Janice called me and she
she said her Juanita was going to the nursing home we canceled. Said Juanita, she was having surgery, her daughter, and they canceled it, so she was going to surprise us at Concord. She got there and we weren't there.
Oh my.
So she called Janice, who lives close by, Crestview Trailer Park, and asked her why we weren't there, and the people there didn't want her to leave. So she went and got Janice, and they went back and sang songs.
Amen. That's good.
After we canceled. So we had a great time there.
Amen.
So then when we got to the other one, then everybody just seemed to be singing with us and really enjoyed it, and they talked about what a good piano player Connie was.
Amen. She is.
And I know this one guy, he sang a few songs, and I went back to shake hands with him, and he said, "You done a great job." I said, "I saw you singing," and he said, "I didn't sing them all because I didn't know them all." But they all sing, they just really enjoy you, Cameron, whether you can sing or not.
Amen.
So I'm definitely not no singer.
Amen.
But we do enjoy going to nursing homes.
Amen.
Sure.
Just need your prayers, and people at the nursing home need your prayers.
Amen. They sure do. Amen. They definitely need that. Bless your heart. It's a great work. Charlie?
Mike, I just sat here thinking about the disaster down in Nashville, Tennessee. You know, Job went through the same thing. Job lost everything
Yes.
that he had possessed. Right. There's a lot of those folks down there that's lost everything they possessed. As long as they got their life,
Amen.
and they got Jesus, that's all they need.
That's right.
It's been said here this evening. You know, we as human beings want a lot of things that we don't need. I know it was mentioned the other day. You know, we need this, we need that, we want this, we want that. But God will provide you with your needs.
Yes, He will.
He gives us air to breathe each day. He gives us food to eat. He gives us remnants, clothing to wear, shoes, and all as the song goes. You know, and we just need to stop and say how quick that could all be taken away from us. That happened the other morning, at 1:56 in the morning. Everybody should have been asleep at that time. They just might be a few people up, but it just happened so quick. But that's how God works.
Amen.
You know, God can save you that quick.
He can.
He can take you out of this life that quick. I need your prayers this evening that maybe this little light can shine a little bit brighter for those lost and young.
Amen. Bless you, brother. We don't have the promise of going back to our house tonight, do we? You know, we leave, we lock up, we think everything's going to be good. It could be broke into, it could be burned down, or we might get killed on the way heading back from here. So, or the Lord could come back, you know, between now and then. So, but I'm glad that my hope ain't in that. You know, you come over to my house, you're not going to find cathedral ceilings and stuff like that. But it's a nice, it's a home where we live, and it's good enough, you know. But I'm glad that if that goes away, I haven't lost everything, because just like Connie's saying, I still have everything I need in Christ all the time. And if you got that, then when stuff like that happens, it's a lot easier to handle, isn't it? Because if you have all your hope in one place, your house or your cars or your goods of this world, then it's not going to be very pleasant when you lose it all that quick, like Job did. But Job knew who to call on to, didn't he? Yeah, he knew, and his trust and his faith carried him through. Someone else. Song. Gina, they're calling on you. Someone got a testimony while she's coming?
You gotta walk that lonesome valley. You gotta go there by yourself. There's no one here who can walk it for you. You gotta go there by yourself. Some folks say that John the Baptist, he was nothing but a Jew. But the Holy Bible tells us that he was a preacher too. You gotta walk that lonesome valley. You gotta go there by yourself. There's no one here who can walk it for you. You gotta go there by yourself. Mother said when she was dying, just before her breath was gone, darling son, just trust in Jesus, and he'll take you safely home. You gotta walk that lonesome valley. You gotta walk it by yourself. There's no one here who can walk it for you. You gotta walk it by yourself.
It's one journey we're going to take on our own, ain't we, sis? You know, no matter what we have. And I had great parents, great Christian parents, but that didn't do a thing for me as far as when I'll stand before Jesus. I'll stand for him by myself. You know, it'll be what did you do with me, not what they did. We can't coattail on anybody, can we? We have to depend upon him.
Yeah, I want to stand up here and say that, you know, I love the Lord. Different songs, you know, that my mom and dad and us kids sang crosses my mind as I'm driving to work and stuff, and this was one of them. And I could get the first verse and the chorus, and I've got a sister that can remember every song we ever sang growing up, and I called her and I said, Mona, will you please write down the words for You Gotta Walk That Lonesome Valley for me? So she did, and I got some mistakes in here that she made. But you know, the valley can be lonesome sometimes.
Sure.
You know? Walking with God, it can be lonesome as far as your family and your friends leaving you. But you know, they don't matter to me. I love my family and I love my friends. But you know, if they don't want to have nothing to do with me because I'm serving God and I want to make heaven my home, that's fine. You know, as long as I get it, you know, I serve God and I make heaven my home one of these days. That's all I want to do.
Yes, amen. Amen. Got to have that kind of determination, don't we? We got to move forward. We got to trust him and hope they come on board and witness to them, love them, but we can't stay back for them, can we? You know, we can't let them hold us back. Someone else with song, testimony. Dwayne, you got a song tonight? He's shaking his head no. I'm trying to use that draft that, you know, see, I'm not good at it like you are, see, so. But anyone else, if anything on your heart? If not, we're going to soon turn it over to George, and he's liable to preach on testimonies and singing. So you know, you don't know. You know, it's always enjoy hearing him preach. You know, it's good to hear good ministers. You know, I like to listen to a lot of different preachers. You know, and that preach. You know, the Word of God. Listen to them on the radio. You know, Chuck Swindoll and all those guys that, you know, that's preached for a lot of years. You don't have to agree with every single thing that they. You know, my grandpa always said, you know, it's kind of like feeding the chickens. You know, if you watch them when you feed them, they peck what they want and leave the rest. You know, so not everything's going to be agreeable, but you can certainly find some good food there. So you know, he preached the Word of God for 50 years and went on. He's at home with the Lord too. So, but someday, by the grace of God, I'll get there too. It's amazing how many people as you get older. You know, there's more people over there now than there is here. You know, that's not the way it was a few years ago, but time's made a change, don't it? So, anyone else with anything on your heart before we turn Brother George loose on you?
Well, I want to say I'm glad I'm here tonight, and I want to say I'm glad Teresa wasn't settled in.
Amen. Amen. It's a blessing, you know, and a pastor needs a good wife. you know, and so do I. You know, I need a good wife too, you know, so, you know, I liked what he said about her spiritual strength. You know, that's the way I feel about Mary too. I think, you know, there's nothing that I don't bounce off of her, and she usually helps steer me back when I get off track a little bit. She'll do that pretty quick a lot of times, so, especially when it comes to spiritual matters. She's not afraid to speak then, you know, so, and I'm thankful for that, you know, because your best friend will tell you the truth. You know, it wouldn't do no good to go to a doctor and you had cancer and he told you, Mike, everything's good, man, you're good to go. Go out of there without any treatment, no help. That ain't much help, is it? But if they set you down and tell you need to do this, this, and this, or you're gonna have problems, then you got a friend. And I'm thankful to have a good friend and someone I can trust and rely on to tell me when I start to venture the wrong way. So, anyone else? All right, we'll ask all of you to stand. Brother George.
I wasn't going to sing this, but I want to go to sleep tonight, so. My prayer is that once I get started, I'll remember all of it. Someone said here a while back, it's hard. Why is it hard to remember songs that you write? You'd think you would remember them the easiest, but it's not always the case. So, but if I mess it up, you may not know anyhow because you probably never heard it. I can make up words. It's my song, right? The flowers look beautiful. Yellow, nice. Candles are straight. They're not live. I came through the back door like so many nights before, and she was on the phone. I heard her tell her best friend, I can't do this again. I'm tired of being alone. She said he's treated me this way one too many times, and I've heard all his excuses every single lie. He knows the door's always been open, just in case he wants to come back home. But if I know him, he cares about himself more than anyone I know. She said if I know him, he's sitting in a place he shouldn't be, spending his last dollar just to have another drink. What about our children? Does he know they need him here at home? But if I know him, he probably thinks right now he can make it on his own. But what she doesn't know is that I spend most of this evening talking to the one in heaven and asking him to help me change my life. I gave him control and he gave me back my freedom and the love for my children and my wife. I've been known to be a leader I know Him. Thank you. All right, if you have your Bibles, let's go back to what is the getting out of book of Dodge? The book of Exodus. Let's go back to the book of Exodus tonight. Book of Exodus in chapter 32. Chapter 32 of Exodus. Do services feel different to you? I mean, Sunday morning versus Sunday night versus Wednesday night. And sometimes it may just be the day you've had or the mood you're in. But I just, there are some services that I pastored for years, and Sunday morning service is pretty good, and you see the majority of your flock on Sunday morning. But it just seems like those evening services just kind of jail. They just, this has been a good service, and you all are too kind to us, for sure. But we're glad to be here with you tonight. The book of Exodus in chapter 32. I just spoke about this because we just preached not far from here the other day, but God has blessed His people, and God's people are usually stubborn people. How many of you tonight are God's people? How many of you tonight are stubborn? Well, it probably would go without saying that we can be stubborn sometimes, but in the book of Exodus, you read through and you see where God has brought the children of Israel out, and that God has given Moses, who is on the mountain, He's given him the commandments. And before He ever makes them down, makes it down the mountain with the commandments, he begins to hear this noise of this roaring, and these people basically living it up, if you will. Joshua in chapter 32 and verse 17, when Joshua hears this noise, and he says to Moses, there is a noise of war in the camp. Because they're not right down there, and so they can't really hear what is being said. All they hear is just this roar of people. Well, if you go back to the beginning of the chapter, you begin to read that when Moses goes up, Joshua doesn't go all the way up to where God meets, but as Moses goes up and has been delayed there for a while, the people decide they need something. And if you remember when Moses is there at the burning bush and God begins to speak to him from that bush, and I'm not putting Moses down. You would think that this is enough, that this bush, that there's this voice coming out of this bush, that you would say, yes, Lord, whatever it is you want me to do. But as God began to deal with him, he threw up the thing that he can't do, which is to go and speak, because he doesn't speak well. And there are a lot of people, probably some of us in here tonight, that would say the same thing. I know men, when they're called to preach, they feel inadequate, feel like they can't do that. That's something that they can't do. I know people that would never teach a Sunday school class if you beg them to, because they just don't feel like they can stand in front of people. And so I'm not putting Moses down, but you see what it got him. When God asked him, or commanded him to go and to speak to Pharaoh, if he would have done that, God would have worked everything out if he would have just done what God said. Well, he didn't, so God said, well, here comes your brother Aaron. I know he can talk, and so I'll send him with you. Blessing or a curse? Well, more than once, you find that it didn't turn out good for Moses to have his brother to go with him, because his brother got in trouble sometimes. And so here he is, he's up on the mountain, he's talking to God. The people come to Aaron, Moses' brother, who is the mouthpiece, who is a mouthpiece, because Aaron says, I stutter, I can't do it. It's not always the person that can do it best is the best person for the job. And that's proof right there, because Aaron could do what he needed to do by speaking, but he wasn't the best person for the job. And so here the people come to him and they tell him, we don't know what's happened to Moses. I think they even probably put it like, we don't know what's happened to this Moses. But they needed something to worship. And we all need to worship. And there's something within mankind that has a drive to worship something. I find it kind of comical, I guess, or maybe not comical, but maybe not funny, ha-ha funny, that one of the biggest shows for a long time on television, and it's still pretty popular, but it was American Idol. Because we always want to have an idol, somebody that we can look to and say, hey, aren't they great? Isn't this great? And so you know the story that they come to Aaron, and Aaron has them to take off their earrings and their nose rings and their eyebrow rings and their bracelets and their necklaces and all the stuff that they got from Egypt, and has them to bring it to him, and they melt it down. They put it through the fire, they melt it down, and they take all this gold and they make a golden calf, an image for them to worship. And so when Moses and Aaron, and what is the first commandment that God writes? With his own finger, God writes, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Well, Moses is coming down the mountain, and Joshua says, there's a noise of war in the camp in verse 17. In verse 18, it says, and he said, it is not the voice of them that shout for mastery, neither is it the voice of them that cry for being overcome, but the noise of them that sing do I hear. So Moses got a better listen than what Joshua did. In verse 19 it says, and it came to pass, as soon as he came nigh into the camp, that he saw the calf and the dancing, and Moses' anger waxed hot, and he cast the tables out of his hands and brake them beneath the mount. And he took the calf which they made and burnt it in the fire, and ground it to powder, and strewed it upon the water, and made the children of Israel drink it. Don't know, and I keep track occasionally. I write down when I preach something or when I read something, and maybe I've spoken on this before here, but our son's been passing kidney stones. My dad passed 34 the last year he was living. Our son has been passing kidney stones like wild. I mean, 2 to 3 a day sometimes. Just said he passed the biggest one he's ever passed just this past week. But can you imagine the kidney stones that would come from this? From taking that calf and melting it down and grinding it up and putting it in powder and casting it on the water, and then he says, now you drink it. You could take those kidney stones to the pawn shop, probably, you know. I mean, it's like, and so here, that was their punishment. But he made them drink of it. Moses said unto Aaron, what did this people unto thee, that thou hast brought so great a sin upon them? And see, it's sin already. And Moses calls it sin. He doesn't just let it go, but he calls it sin. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. They didn't know that that was on those tablets that he brings down. And then when he sees this, he breaks those tablets. Well, they didn't know that was on there. It's not like we don't know today. When someone asks you, do you think this is sin? Do you think if I do this, this is sin? If God lives in us, if Christ lives in us, if the Father and the Son come and they make our abode in us, it's going to be hard-pressed if you're really a Christian, not just a churchgoer, but really a Christian, for something to happen and God not to speak to you and let you know right off if it is sin or if it isn't. I don't think you always have to go to the minister. And I'm not going to knock you if you do that, because I understand that especially young Christians, we need to grow and there are things, but most of the time that somebody has ever asked me if something was was a sin to do, it was because they wanted to do it or they wanted to keep doing it. And they wanted me to say that no, it wasn't a sin. Or we can throw this out there and say it might be sin for Joe Blow, but it's not sin for this one. And whatever. I think God will let us know, because if it's something that He does not want for us, He's not going to leave us in the dark about it. But Moses says to Aaron, what did they do to you to make you, to overtake you and to make you sin this sin? And Aaron said, let not the anger of my Lord wax hot. Thou knowest the people, that they are set on mischief. Didn't Moses know the people? He did. He did know them. And it's more than once. He said to God, and God said, I'm going to destroy them. And God said, Moses said, if you destroy them, destroy me too. But then another time, Moses said, it is the people. They're your people, God. He knew how they were. Now, you're with someone very long, you know how they are, right? It doesn't take you, maybe some of us it takes a little bit longer, but it after a while you begin to know how they are. And so Aaron here, he's like begging for mercy, but he's pushing them under the bus. You know how they are, that they are set on mischief. Verse 23 said, for they said unto me, make us gods, which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that God brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. And I said unto them, whosoever hath any gold, let them break it off. So they gave it me. Then I cast it in the fire, and there came out this calf. What a lie. This is like man comes from this ooze, and all of a sudden now here he is walking and talking and breathing and singing and running and all that. This is almost as hard to believe as what those people would have you believe, that you came from a monkey, right? We just threw the gold in the fire, and then boom, all of a sudden this calf comes walking out. And Moses could have said, wouldn't it be funny, Moses be like John Wayne, like, how stupid do you think I am? And when Moses saw that the people were naked, for Aaron had made them naked under their shame among their enemies. And so now we're going to, it'd been one thing if they'd taken off all their gold and thrown it in the fire, and here they are worshiping this. But now not only have they taken off their gold and their bracelets and their necklaces and all that jazz, but they've taken off their clothes too. This shows how severe this was. To them, they were living, and I have to believe that they were living up to something that they had seen while they were in Egypt. And I'm going to tell you something, as Christians tonight, God does not expect that we continue to carry on the way we did when we weren't Christians. And so, He has a different set of tracks for us to walk, if you will, a different path for us to walk. And so He does not expect that we continue to live the same way we did. Brother Roy and I were just having a conversation just shortly before service started, and he said something to the effect that sweet and bitter water cannot come forth out of the same fountain. So when you realize that, if you ever realize that in your own life, that you continue maybe to talk the way. Now, let me stop here and say to you that if you used a curse word for 40 years and you just got saved and all of a sudden that word slips, don't let Satan tell you don't have anything. Ask God to forgive you and go on. Don't make a habit of it though. But if you continue to ooze out not just the curse words, but the same kind of maybe resentment or hating or whatever it was that you had in your life before, if that continues out, then you need to probably check. Maybe go back and ask God to help you with that. But you can't be two things at once. You're not going to get sweet and bitter water out of the same fountain. And so here, when Moses sees what's going on, in verse 26 it says, then Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, who is on the Lord's side? Let him come unto me.
And the sons of Levi gathered themselves together unto him. Now the sons of Levi would have been the priests. That's what would have been and what will continue to be. And so here they gathered themselves and they came together unto him. I don't know when the last time it is that you read this or if you ever read it, but it says in verse 27, he said unto them, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, Put every man his sword by his side, and go in and out from gate to gate throughout the camp, and slay every man and his brother, and every man his companion, and every man his neighbor. And the children of Levi did according to the word of Moses. And there fell of the people that day about 3,000 men. For Moses had said, Consecrate yourselves today to the Lord, even every man upon his son and upon his brother, that he may bestow upon you a blessing this day. And it came to pass on the morrow that Moses said unto the people, Ye have sinned a great sin, and now I will go up unto the Lord. Peradventure I shall make an atonement for your sin. This is pretty gory, isn't it? I mean, this is like, hey, what if your pastor said, okay, tonight, who's on the Lord's side? And I got a bunch of people up here, and I just said, okay, guys, now take out your sword and go kill the ones who said they aren't, or the ones who did wickedness. Somewhere they were making their choice. They had already lived in Egypt and were being brought out, and with the one that was the intercessor being gone for a little bit, they began to act like heathens. Do you know if you continue to live with something, it won't be long that it'll rub off on you? It'll rub off on your family. It'll rub off on your children. It'll rub off on your grandchildren. It'll rub off on you at work. It'll rub off on the people out there. You'll bring it to the church. It'll just continue. So if God speaks and says, okay, this is it, that's enough, stop. You now are changed. This is the way you live. Now, this is very hard to do if you're not a Christian. Do you know if you're not a Christian tonight, and all of you are, we take that, you say you are, and so we believe that, but there may be other people watching this that maybe other people that will listen to it sometime. But we got to realize that the people that are outside of these doors that are not Christians, they don't love God because they don't know God. Have you ever said to someone or heard somebody say of someone, oh, I know him, when really they don't know him at all? I'm not talking about God, but let's say you pick up the newspaper and you open it up and say, I know him. And there are those of you here that would do that tonight, me as well. I'd pick up the newspaper and see someone and say, oh, yeah, I know him. Do I really? I could say, well, know of him, depending on who it is. If you opened up the newspaper and there was a column by Tim Throckmorton, I could say, I know him. And I do know him. And I know him pretty well. You could look and see a column by Lauren Harden, hospice social worker for SOMC. And I could say, I know him because I do know him. Not as good as I know Tim, but I know him. You could open up and see the guy that talks about fishing and hunting and all that stuff, and you guys may know him. And I could look at that. I haven't looked at a paper for a long time, but I do know there was a guy that used to do that on there. It's kind of like that guy on Channel 3 that's always talking about flowers, where here's this guy in the paper sometimes. I could look at that picture, and if I said to you, I know him, and only really knew that he was in the paper every so often, I'd be lying, because I don't know him at all. How many people say, I know God, but they really don't know God? They know of God. They've heard about God. They've got family members that know God, but they don't have a clue. And when you don't know God and you don't have a clue, you don't love Him like we do. Like those that are born again Christians. When you become born again, you then begin to love God. And your mindset then begins to change. And just the same, being brought out of Egypt now, we could say Moses is gone and he's on the mountain. It'd be about like Jesus Christ being gone. But guess what? Moses came back. And guess what? Christ is coming back too someday. And so we could live it up and live just like the world, and there would be a price to be paid. And for them, there was a price to be paid. There were 3,000 people lost their lives. As a matter of fact, they didn't just lose their lives, they gave up their lives for a little bit of pleasure. That's what happened. That explains that whole thing. But verse 26, if you didn't know, is what I want to say to you tonight. The question I want to ask you. Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, who is on the Lord's side? When I walked in here tonight, I was talking back there to the fellows back in the booth. And the fellows, and now they're not all fellows now because there's a lady back there too, but I was talking to the two fellows back there sitting at the sound booth. And so I said to Rich, he was playing a song, and I said, play some Hensons. And so he starts playing Kenny Henson. Well, one of the Henson songs that I just love is Who is on the Lord's Side Among You? And it's been on my mind, and I drove 243 miles today, and it's been on my mind, who is on the Lord's side. I didn't have to wonder what I was going to preach on. You say you take your message from a song? Yeah, you know where they got the song? From the Word of God. And so, when I ask you tonight who is on the Lord's side, if I were to ask anybody in this crowd tonight on the Lord's side, and you stood and said, yes, Brother George, I am, we could basically say it's Wednesday night. And, well, it's not real cold out. Now, some people are cold. Miss Helen's cold, probably. I just figure. Teresa probably cold. I don't know. We could say it's been a nice day. We know the time's going to change this weekend, and then sometimes you don't see people as often at church because of the weather in the winter, and it'll be coming again soon that you won't see people as often because the weather's nice. And so we got to get out and get it before the snow hits again 6 months from now, or if it ever does. And so, if I were to say to you tonight, who is on the Lord's side? You could say, well, I am, Brother George. That's kind of a ridiculous question to ask. I wouldn't have wasted my time coming to church here if I wasn't on the Lord's side. But who is really on the Lord's side? I mean, have we sold out to say that no matter what happens, somewhere along the line, and studying Job and listening to the lessons that's being taught and listening to the talk tonight from Brother Mike, we've got to understand that Job couldn't have been the only person from the time of Job, if it is indeed the oldest book in the Bible, from the time of Job till now, surely God hasn't just looked at one person and said, have you considered my servant Job? But surely God has been able to say, have you considered this one or this one or this one? Surely He's been able to. I mean, God help us if only person ever to be spoken of like that was Job. Now, you and I might back up and say, whoa, I know he's never said that about me. Who would we say it about then? Could we go back and say Charles Spurgeon? And maybe you don't know who he is. Look him up. Google him sometime if you must. But Charles Spurgeon, a great preacher, a man who preached in a huge tabernacle, and thousands of souls saved, was a pastor, studied hard, did everything. But you start reading his life, he had a lot of problems. And he had some things that I guarantee you, if he was in the pulpit today and he was living around here somewhere today, probably some things that he wouldn't want told. But he's not here today, and so when you start looking it up, you can see that there were some things that he did that even the people that weren't Christians could look at that and say, well, he shouldn't be doing that. One of them was, he did smoke cigars for a while. And reading after him, he said it was something that just kind of relaxed him. It's something he'd just go out and just sit on his porch and smoke a cigar, read the Word of God. Well, before you knock, let me just tell you something that happened to him. There was a big cigar company at the time, that decided that they were going to run an ad. And so printing was fairly new. The printing press, things are going pretty good. So they print this article up, or they print this little ad up, and they put it in this newspaper. And it says, because he was so popular, it said, smoke the brand that Spurgeon smokes. Yeah. Well, he quit smoking cigars. But I'm telling you, just about any church you walk in today, all around us, someone will quote him. Someone will use a piece of his message. Someone will say how great of a preacher he was. But then we could also step back and say, yeah, but. How many yeah, buts are in your life? How many yeah buts are in my life? If somebody to look and say, yeah, but. And so how did God look at that? Well, evidently something happened where he just said, I need to stop this. I'm not picking on the man. I'm just saying he was human. Okay, so Spurgeon aside, how about you ever hear of Billy Sunday? Wow, well, what about Billy Sunday? You think God ever said, have you looked and even considered my servant Billy? How about, we all know, Billy Graham? I mean, when we start looking at people, why is it that we look at somebody else and say, that's God's man? Well, Brother Mike said it tonight. A young lady saw him following the Lord, and she said, who maybe wasn't right with God, maybe she wasn't a Christian, but she looked at him and basically said, that's God's man. So it's good to know that we're on the Lord's side. Notice the question I asked tonight wasn't, how many of you have problems? Who has problems? Because everybody's hand to go up. Who has faults? Everybody's hand to go up. Who has failures? Everybody's hand would go up. But if I said, who is on the Lord's side tonight? Hopefully everybody's hand would go up, and inside your heart would just thump and say, God, I just won. I listened as Brother Wayne testified. He didn't know what I was going to preach, but I just thought to myself, that's what we should all want. I mean, I'm not saying that you must sit and read the Bible all the time and that you got to sit and rock back and forth and meditate and that you got to watch preaching all the time or gospel music all the time. I'm not going to say it would hurt you, but I'm not going to say you got to do it all the time. But I'm just saying, shouldn't we all have a desire to get closer to God? Who is on the Lord's side tonight? It beats the alternative of the ones that didn't say, count me in, because they were slaughtered. It's easy for us to say how good God is to us, isn't it? How good He is to us, how blessed He is to us. And then to have the gentleman call last night from Myrtle Beach, and when I saw his name, because I saved his number, and when I saw his name come up on my phone, of course, I hadn't talked to him for a little while. I thought, oh, this is nice. But as soon as I started to answer, I thought, but the last couple times, I have been the one to call him. So my mind immediately says, something's wrong. And so I answer the phone, and it is his voice, and I recognize his voice. And as he begins to speak, he starts to tell me what's wrong. And at the end of the conversation, he said, it's not the same down here without you. Thinking, God, he wasn't down there, you know what I'm saying? But he meant down south. Wasn't the same. And it kind of made me feel good. And I knew I had a woman that we loved that was dying in the Myrtle Beach area that night. As I was on the phone with him, someone else there that we loved was about to pass. And I thought, God, I don't know if I'll ever know why we have like a separate life there with people that we pastored and people that we loved. And to some people, that's just not a question. They don't care. It is what it is, I guess. Maybe it's just life. But to us, it was new because we'd never lived anywhere. And then, if you don't want to get attached to people, don't talk to them. Maybe that's some of you never talk to me much because maybe you're just like, we don't want to get attached to him. But when you do love people and you get attached to them, it is difficult. And that was difficult. But when he was hanging up, he said, but I wanted to call you because I knew that you would pray, that you all would pray. And basically you had confidence in that prayer. And I almost let him hang up. And I said, wait a minute. Can I have a prayer with you right now? And he said, absolutely. And so I got to have a prayer with him. And that was good. We hung up. Earlier in the day, the woman that passed today, one of my chaplain friends called me. And he was at her bedside. And he said, George, he said, I'm so glad you were able to call. And I said, I'm driving. And he said, I'm right here with her. And he said, she's not responsive. He said, and she's been this way now all day. And so we're sitting here by her. He said, but I would like for you to just talk to her. He said, I'm going to put the phone up to her ear. Her family's all here. He said, I'm going to put the phone up to her ear. So we'd become pretty good friends. And so as he puts the phone up to her ear, I called her by name. I told her how much Teresa and I loved her. And I said, I'm sorry that I haven't been able to be there with you right now. And I said, and I'm not sure that I'll ever get to see you here again. I said, but where you are going, when you get there and you get back with your husband, and then when you're there and you're enjoying yourself, it's not going to be long. We're going to be right behind you. And when he put the phone back up to his ear, the chaplain said, whatever you said to her, she smiled. Like, who is on the Lord's side? It might not matter much when you don't have any cares, any problems, but man, this world seems to just want to crush you. Isn't it great to be able to say tonight, not only I am on the Lord's side, but He is on my side as well? I mean, it's one thing to say, I'm on the Lord's side, and the Lord turn His back and say, and that guy's crazy. I don't know him. Never seen him before. But it is another thing for God to say, I'm on His side. I'll tell you one thing, then I'll let you go. There was a kid at school whenever I was in elementary school. This kid picked on me all the time, always picking on me. And I got pretty big. I got bigger than most kids that ever picked on me, but I just wasn't that big at the time he was picking on me. I took care of him later, but no. But anyhow, he's picking on me. My dad said, if you can't beat him up yourself, go get your brother. Okay. It's pretty good, All right. So the guy comes and he starts picking on me and pushing me and hitting me. And of course, I'm just a little kid, and I remember what Dad said, and I ran and got my big brother and come out. And it didn't end up so good for him either. Don't worry about that with Christ. Your big brother, he can handle anything that comes at you. You say, I can't take this anymore, God. And sometimes I think maybe God is waiting to hear us say that. I can't do this anymore, God. I mean, it's just shortly before this 3-week turnaround that we've experienced in our lives after 2 years. I just on the side of the road saying, God, I don't know how much more of this I can take, God. I mean, God, I'm trying to pastor that church. God, I'm doing what I'm doing with sick and dying people. And God, this is bearing on my mind so much. And I thought, but other people go through it. But I said, God, I need help. I can't tell you how it ended, but I can tell you right now, He's relieved a lot of that pressure. And that's pretty good. Be able to come in here tonight and, you never want a pastor that's always like Eeyore, like, how you doing, Pastor? I don't want to shake your hand. I got the blues tonight. I'll rub off on you. You want your pastor to be lively, and that's why I got Chris sitting with me up here on this front row. I mean, he's younger than me. I'm not hoping that stuff rubs off on me. Chris, believe it or not, I used to walk. Well, and I'd preach too. That's what happened to me. I got bigger and it just kind of stuck me in one place. But I'm waiting for it to rub off on me. Who is on the Lord's side tonight? That's your message tonight. Stand with me if you will. Maybe you're here with a need. Maybe you just need a feeling more of not only are you on God's side, rededicate or recommit, whatever, but just a good feeling that, hey, He's still on your side. And maybe you're here tonight and you'd like to pray. We'll give you some time to do that.